The morning on Xylar 9 arrived in a soft golden haze. The twin suns rose slowly over the dense jungle canopy, scattering light through the glowing leaves. Commander Alara stirred from her temporary shelter, careful not to wake the tiny predator cubs nestled under her jacket. They had spent the night safe and warm, and she wanted them to continue feeling secure. As she prepared her equipment, the cubs began to stretch and yawn. Tiny claws poked out from the folds of her jacket and little noses sniffed the alien air. One cub climbed over her arm, trying to get a better view of the jungle around them. Alara laughed quietly, whispering, "Patience, little ones. We will see everything soon enough." Her voice was soft and calm, and the cubs seemed to respond, tilting their heads as if they understood her tone. The day's mission was to explore a nearby river, rumored to be home to strange amphibious creatures. Alara moved carefully, making her way through the thick undergrowth while the cubs followed under her jacket. Occasionally one would peek out, exploring the world for a few moments before retreating back into the warmth of her protective clothing. As they approached the river, the jungle grew louder. The hum of insects and the rustle of unseen creatures created a symphony of life. The river itself was a breathtaking sight. Water, clear as crystal, flowed over smooth stones, reflecting the light in sparkling patterns. Alien plants grew along its banks, some with flowers that glowed faintly, and others with vines that moved as if they were alive. The cubs were fascinated. They climbed cautiously along her jacket, their eyes wide with wonder. One particularly brave cub ventured out onto a rock near the riverbank. It pawed at the water, sending tiny ripples across the surface. Alara watched carefully, ensuring the cub remained safe. She felt a deep sense of pride. These creatures, so wild and alien, were learning to trust a human. Suddenly, the calm of the morning was broken by a low rumble. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Alara froze, her senses alert. The rumble grew louder, and from the dense trees emerged a group of adult predators, their size far larger than the cubs. Their scales shimmered in the sunlight, and their eyes glowed with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Alara's heart raced, but she did not panic. She had trained for encounters with dangerous creatures, and she knew the importance of remaining calm. Slowly, she crouched low, keeping the cubs close under her jacket. She extended a hand in a gesture of peace, speaking softly in a tone meant to soothe rather than command. The adult predators paused, their massive heads tilting as they studied her. The cubs peeked out, watching intently. One of the larger predators stepped forward, sniffing the air cautiously. Alara remained still, showing no fear. Her calm presence seemed to communicate something the predators understood. She was not a threat. After a tense moment, the adult predators relaxed slightly. They circled around, inspecting the cubs and Alara. One of the adults nudged a cub gently, as if to ensure it was safe. Alara realized that her patience, her willingness to observe and respect the cubs, had earned the trust of the entire group. The cubs watched in awe, their tiny eyes wide as they saw their human protector face creatures far larger and more powerful than themselves, with courage and intelligence. The jungle seemed to settle again, and Alara took a careful step forward, leading the cubs and the adult predators along the riverbank. She pointed out the plants and small creatures, sharing her discoveries in soft whispers. The predators seemed to follow her guidance, their curiosity piqued by her calm and steady movements. As the day progressed, Alara observed the cubs learning from their elders. The brave cub attempted to mimic the adult's movements, climbing over rocks and testing its balance near the water. The cautious cub stayed close, learning through observation, and the observant cub seemed to study everything, recording patterns in its mind, much like Alara did with her data pad. Alara realized that this small community of predators, both young and adult, was teaching her as much as she was teaching them. They moved with a grace and precision that humans rarely achieved, and their instinctual intelligence was remarkable. She felt a deep respect for the creatures of Xylar 9, understanding that true knowledge came from observation, patience, and trust. As the suns began to dip toward the horizon, the predators returned to their hiding places in the jungle. The cubs, now tired from a day of exploration and learning, crawled back under Alara's jacket. She smiled, adjusting the folds to keep them warm. "Rest now, little ones," she whispered. "Tomorrow will bring more wonders." Night fell, and the jungle became alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. The glow of plants and insects created a soft, magical light. Alara lay back, listening to the peaceful breathing of the cubs beneath her jacket. She thought about the day's events, the challenges, the discoveries, and the bonds she had formed. Humanity's ability to connect with alien life, to understand and protect rather than conquer, was proving itself once again. In the quiet of the night, Ilara reflected on the lessons she had learned. Courage was not just about facing danger. It was about showing patience and respect to those who were different. Intelligence was not only about knowledge but also about understanding behavior and forming connections. And empathy, the ability to care for others, even creatures vastly different from oneself, was perhaps the greatest human strength of all. The next morning, Ilara awoke to find the cubs already stirring. They had grown comfortable enough to explore their surroundings briefly before returning to her for warmth and protection. She allowed them to crawl freely, keeping a careful eye on their movements. The jungle was alive, and every sound and movement was a lesson in observation and adaptation. Ilara led the cubs to a new area of the jungle, where towering trees formed natural bridges across small streams. The cubs climbed and balanced along the branches, learning from each other and from the environment. One cub slipped slightly, but Ilara was ready, catching it with a steady hand before it fell. The cub's eyes met hers, and she felt a silent understanding pass between them. Trust had been earned, and it was strong. As the suns began to set, casting long shadows across the jungle floor, Ilara prepared to return to her temporary camp. The cubs, exhausted from a full day of learning and play, crawled back under her jacket. She adjusted her clothing to keep them safe and warm, feeling the gentle rise and fall of their tiny bodies. The journey back was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of the jungle and the soft sounds of the cubs shifting under her jacket. Ilara's mind wandered to the possibilities this bond could bring. Humans had the ability to connect with alien species in ways that were often unexpected. Trust, patience, and empathy were not weaknesses. They were tools, powerful enough to bridge worlds. By the time Ilara reached her camp, the jungle was bathed in the soft light of evening. She set up her shelter, ensuring the cubs remained secure. They curled together, their breathing slow and even, a sign of their comfort and safety. Ilara watched over them, proud of the courage she had shown and the trust she had earned. As she settled in for the night, she reflected on the lessons of Xylar 9. The jungle had tested her, taught her, and rewarded her. Humanity's strength was not just in technology or strategy, but in the ability to connect, understand, and protect. The cubs were a small but powerful reminder of that truth. Ilara closed her eyes, listening to the soft breathing of the cubs beneath her jacket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new opportunities to learn. She felt a quiet confidence, knowing that as long as she remained patient, empathetic, and courageous, she could face whatever the jungle and the universe had in store. The predator cubs, safe and warm, were more than creatures of this alien world. They were symbols of humanity's ability to bridge gaps, to form bonds, and to show strength through care and understanding. And under Ilara's watchful eyes, they slept peacefully, dreaming of adventures yet to come. In the vast and mysterious world of Xylar 9, humanity had found a way not only to survive but to inspire, to connect, and to thrive. And as long as humans like Commander Ilara walked among the stars, the universe had reason to believe in their courage, intelligence, and heart. The jungle of Xylar 9 was unlike anything Commander Ilara had ever seen. Giant ferns towered over her, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim light of the planet's twin suns. Strange insects flitted through the air, leaving trails of faint bioluminescent light, and the ground was soft and damp under her boots. She had come to this remote planet as part of a human expedition, tasked with studying the wildlife and learning how humans could coexist with the native species. Ilara moved carefully, scanning the dense undergrowth with sharp, practiced eyes. Every so often she paused to record a plant specimen or observe a movement in the shadows. She had been walking for hours when she first heard the soft hissing noises. At first she thought it might be the wind moving through the alien trees, but the sound was too deliberate, too alive. It came from a patch of ferns nearby. Curiosity pricked at her. She crouched low, pushing aside the ferns slowly so she wouldn't startle whatever creature hid within. That's when she saw them. Tiny predator cubs, no bigger than a rabbit, their bodies covered in shimmering scales that reflected the faint sunlight. Their eyes glowed softly, intelligent and aware, scanning her with equal curiosity. The cubs hissed quietly, not in aggression but almost in greeting. They moved cautiously toward her, their small claws clicking on the jungle floor. One of the cubs paused, its head tilting in a way that seemed almost human, studying her closely. Alara felt a thrill of excitement. These creatures were far more aware than normal predators, and their curiosity matched her own. She decided to act slowly. Any sudden movement could frighten them. Alara crouched even lower, letting her jacket brush the ground. "Easy there," she whispered, not expecting them to understand words but hoping her tone conveyed safety. To her surprise, the cubs responded. They edged closer, noses twitching as they sniffed her jacket. One bold cub even crawled under the edge of her sleeve, nestling briefly against the warmth. Alara's heart raced, but she remained calm. She had been trained for encounters with wild creatures, but nothing could prepare her for the gentle, intelligent gaze of these alien cubs. They were tiny, yet their presence was commanding. She took careful notes in her datapad, recording their movements and interactions. Hours passed. The cubs explored her jacket cautiously, hiding beneath folds and climbing over her arms. Alara observed silently, careful not to interrupt their natural behavior. She noticed small differences among the cubs. One was brave, venturing further away from the others to explore, while another was cautious, staying hidden most of the time. A third seemed to observe everything, its bright eyes following every movement she made. The sun dipped lower in the sky, and the jungle began to glow in deeper shades of green and gold. Alara knew she needed to set up her temporary shelter soon. She gathered her portable equipment, careful not to disturb the cubs. When she finally settled down to rest, the little creatures had made themselves completely comfortable under her jacket. They curled together in a tiny bundle, their breathing slow and even. Alara felt a warm smile spread across her face. She had expected curiosity from the cubs, maybe even cautious play, but not this level of trust. They were exhausted from the day's exploration, and she allowed herself a moment of quiet joy. The bond between human and alien predator, however small, was growing. Night fell and the jungle sounds changed. The usual hisses and clicks became softer, replaced by the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Alara could hear the faint rustling of leaves as some of the larger animals moved through the forest canopy above. But beneath her jacket, the cubs slept peacefully, completely unaware of the dangers that lurked in the alien night. Alara knew that patience was the key. The cubs were learning about her and she about them. Every small gesture mattered, every careful movement, every soft word. She reached out slowly, letting her hand hover above them. One tiny paw emerged from under the jacket, and she allowed it to rest lightly on her finger. The contact was gentle, a bridge between species. She thought about the potential of this discovery. Humans had always been explorers, always seeking to understand and connect with the unknown. These cubs, small as they were, represented something bigger, the chance for humans and alien species to coexist peacefully. If she could learn to communicate with them, even at this basic level, it could change the way humans approached other worlds forever. Hours passed, and Alara finally allowed herself to lean back, closing her eyes for a brief rest. The cubs remained under her jacket, their warmth a comforting presence against the cool jungle night. She dreamed of vast alien landscapes of flying creatures and glowing forests, all filled with life and curiosity. The cubs were part of that world now, and she felt honored to share this moment with them. Morning came slowly, the twin suns rising over the jungle canopy in a burst of golden light. Alara awoke to find the cubs still nestled against her, their small bodies rising and falling gently with each breath. They had slept through the night, safe and warm. She smiled, realizing that the trust they had placed in her was a rare gift. She began her day carefully, moving through the jungle while keeping the cubs safe under her jacket. They poked their heads out occasionally, exploring the new sights and sounds of the morning. Alara observed their behavior, fascinated by their intelligence. One cub approached a small insect, tapping it gently with its paw before retreating. Another climbed over her shoulder, sniffing the air as if trying to understand the entire jungle at once. Alara spoke softly to them, telling them about her mission, her home, and her curiosity for the jungle. While they could not understand her words, they seemed to recognize her tone, the calm and warmth in her voice. She felt a connection growing stronger with each passing moment. The cubs were not just creatures to study. They were companions, partners in exploration and symbols of the potential for harmony between humans and alien life. By midday, the cubs began to grow restless. Elara let them crawl freely under her jacket, allowing them to stretch and explore while she continued her research. They discovered small pools of water, strange plants, and glowing insects. She watched in amazement as they approached each new element with curiosity and caution, learning and adapting just like humans might. The day ended with the cubs curled back under her jacket, tired but content. Elara looked around the jungle, realizing how much she had learned in just one day. The jungle of Xylar 9 was full of surprises, full of life and full of lessons about trust, patience, and coexistence. And somewhere deep in the folds of her jacket, the tiny predator cubs slept peacefully, safe in the care of a human who had chosen to understand rather than fear them. Elara knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The jungle was vast and unpredictable, and the cubs were still vulnerable. But she also knew that she had earned their trust, and in the world of Xylar 9, trust was more powerful than any weapon. As she watched the sun set, casting a warm glow over the jungle, she felt a quiet pride. Humanity had come to this world not as conquerors, but as learners, and in her small bond with the predator cubs, she saw the promise of a brighter future, one where humans and aliens could exist side by side, each learning from the other. And so, with the cubs sleeping safely under her jacket, Commander Elara prepared for the adventures that tomorrow would bring, ready to face whatever the jungle of Xylar 9 had in store, knowing that courage, patience, and understanding were the keys to survival and to friendship.